Telling that girl she the one for me.
Yeah, do good for 2 hours.
I ain't even planning to call. I want this forever.
Woo! And we are back right here on the Real 1100 AM iHeartRadio, taking in all over the world.
All over the globe.
And it is a Big Scoop Thursday, and I got a big show for you today. I got a big guy. I mean, this man has been developing the economy over there on the south side of Atlanta for his entire life.
Yeah. Man, I notice how you catch yourself. You're like, I got a big guy. He look at you like, who you calling fat?
I had to gain some weight, so yeah.
Lord have mercy. Joining us today from Urban Post, Mr. Christopher Pike.
What's up? What's up? Glad to be here, man. Thanks for the invite. It's always a pleasure to sit down and be able to talk about the South Side. And so glad to be here to really just pump up the stuff that's going on and spend a couple of hours with y'all, or hour, I guess, with y'all.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. First of all, let's get something off the table. I don't appreciate how you came in here making us look bad. You up in here suited up, with the driver's cap and everything.
Right. Listen, they said I was coming on the #1 business show in the world, so I figured I need to look the part. So I put it on. I put it on.
Oh, man. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and get these announcements out of the way real quick. If you are out in the Smyrna area, I want you to go visit all my friends over at Titans Fitness, world-class training facility, fitness programs, nutrition, and no McDonald's, Jeff.
Hey,
you got to let the McDonald's go, Jeff.
I heard that the fries actually help your metabolism.
It helps you slow down a lot. But if you do want to get a free training on me, you can visit right there online at titans.net, or you can visit them at 1834 South Cobb Industrial Boulevard. Go and ask to speak with Rachel Stuckert from Impact Fitness, and she will give you a training right here on the #1 rated business show. If you're out in the Douglasville area and you want to stay looking good, want to stay looking fly, like I need to go visit my guy tomorrow, I want y'all to go visit Studio 1211. You can call, schedule an appointment right there at 770-485-6772. Or visit them right there at 6405 Fairburn Road, right there in beautiful Douglasville, Georgia.
That sounds good.
And we got a lot of work going on out there, too. A lot.
Really?
So much traffic. But no, thank you so much for joining us in studio today, Mr. Pike. I know it's been a while since we've been able to kind of sit down and talk, because I know you've been over in the city of South Fulton doing all that work down there that you did.
Right.
And I mean, Lord, that South Fulton is going like crazy, bro.
It is. Yeah.
Like, ever since they got their cityhood, it's just been boom, 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 boom. That's all you hear about now. Soul food, soul food, soul food.
Yes.
Yes, Lord. Well, I tell you, I tell everybody that South Fulton's one of the fastest growing cities, not only in the state, but in the country. I mean, when I was there, we were building about 1,100 single family homes a year. So if you think about that, that's phenomenal growth. I mean, some cities only do maybe, 20, 30 new homes a year. So to be able to see that amount of growth. But I tell everybody, man, the future of Metro Atlanta is on the south side. Everything south of I-20, I mean, that is really the future. Because, Gwinnett County, I mean, how many more people can you squeeze up there?
Yeah.
It's like they're going to have to take 85 and make a whole nother highway. You cannot get up or down 85 any time of the day going to Gwinnett. It's crazy.
Right. So
I don't know why nobody want to live up there.
That's the truth.
I don't know why they would either, So, but, I tell people, though, when you look at what's going on and what's happening, we got to be prepared to take advantage of the opportunity that's going to come. So that's the other thing, is being able to plan, make sure that the cities are really connected and plugged into what their future looks like. Because the worst thing you can happen is have development happen to you and you not participating in it.
Oh, yeah.
And I tell that from folks who live here. You have folks who've lived on the south side 30, 40, 50 years, generational folks, and you don't want development to happen to them. If you look at some of the stuff that's going on in Atlanta with gentrification, stuff like that, that's just because you didn't have right policies in place to address that stuff. We all knew it was coming, but you got to have the professionals sitting there saying, hey, we need to address this stuff. We need to make sure that we're not pushing out people who help build this community. And so I think that's one thing that, folks need to look at on the south side is, hey, how do we address this growth that's coming? Because everything that I'm seeing, all the information I'm reading, saying that city of Atlanta or Metro Atlanta is going to grow by 1.3 million people by 2030. So think about that's not, but what, like 8 years from now, something like that.
Exactly. That's a lot of traffic, right?
But tell me this: why is it the South Side has become so attractive? I mean, don't get me wrong, you got the airport down there that brings a lot of jobs. But why the South Side? You that we see this just big emergence. Like everybody want to be on the down here in the South now.
I think it has to do with the professionals. So if you think about it, 5-6 years ago, most of the cities on the South Side didn't have economic development professionals.
No, they did not.
So, and what happened is once you started getting those professionals, what I told people when I walked in the door was, we're going to control our narrative. We're going to tell our story about our community the way that we think it should be told. And I think that started resonating with people. So once you control that narrative, you start telling that story over and over again, and then you start bringing people down, telling them how great the South Side is, then it starts to resonate with folks. And I think that's what you're starting to see out there. You can't underestimate the importance of having folks at the table that know how to position your community to win. And so I think that's really what you're seeing. And so all of these communities now understand that that's how you get growth. That's how you get responsible growth. And that's how you get desirable businesses, because everybody knows the people who were playing in the South Side were playing it for warehouses and industrial. And you're starting to see that narrative change a lot, because now folks are saying, well, we want the same thing that folks in Alpharetta have, and folks in Roswell and Sandy Springs. And so that's when you're starting to see that type of development come on the South Side. But it took time. I mean, you have to sit at the table, talk to developers, and get them to understand, like, listen, this is our expectation, and you have to come down and meet that expectation.
How can a community get involved in knowing what's going on and helping create the narrative for their community? Because a lot of times the community will find out about it after it happened. I mean, there's nothing they can do about it, and they don't know actually where to go to find out, or who to contact. They basically go, hey, it's time to vote. I like this guy's shirt, I'm gonna vote for him. I mean, they don't even know what's going on.
On these smaller elections, for real. Because a lot of times you don't know who the people on the ballots are.
Yeah, that's true. And listen, I tell people all the time, citizens have a responsibility as well in this whole situation. They have to be plugged in, and there's too many avenues not to be plugged in now. So back in the day, before you had social media and the internet and all that, I mean, you had to read and find a little meeting notice. I tell them all the time, I said, the worst thing you can do is have a zoning application for mayor and council, and then people come with pitchforks against your project because it's dead on arrival. It's not going to get approved. So you have to do, as a developer, you have to go out there and talk to the community and be like, hey, this is what we're trying to do. We'd like to get your feedback. Come to this meeting, tell us, hey, we like that. No, we don't like that. This sucks. That, so that way when you go and you present to the mayor and council, the community will be like, okay, well, we know about that. We don't agree with everything, but we can deal with most of what they got going on. And so I think that's the other part of it as well. So,
now how should people look at things from a level of an economist? What is actually that essential role, or what's one of the things that you do as far as being an economist?
But I'm not an economist. So I think that's what it was funny, because when I first started with City of South Fulton, we had somebody get up and make public comment. It's like, how can somebody do economic development? They're not an economist. And I'm like, I was like, well, economic development professionals aren't economists. We give economists something to talk about.
Okay.
So, so the economic development,
sit on the sideline and they call this. They just tell them what's happening.
Right. They just report on the stuff that we're doing. That's what. So what we do is we go out and we actually engage the folks to actually get the stuff built that economists talk about. So when we're talking about job creation, well, somebody has to be on the local level making that job creation happen. Or if we're talking about new home sales, or we're talking about new new capital investment in a market. Those are people like me that are out there pounding the pavement, going to talk to folks to get stuff actually coming out of the ground. And so, and then that's what economists then go back and report on. Well, we've had this much growth. Well,
they get the credit.
Yeah. Well, they don't get the credit. I think most
they just get to commentate.
They get to give us our report card. They score us on what we've done. That's what they do. But that's how that works. But from understanding that, though, and we do understand how the markets work, and we do understand how employment affects the economy, how job creation affects the economy, how bringing in new capital investment affects the economy. The reality is, the more opportunities you create for people, the better the economy is going to be. And so we do understand that, but we're actually physically do the work as opposed to doing the reporting of the work. So yeah, that's Kevin. The best way. That's the best way to break it down from an economist to an economist.
It's like this, there's the guy behind that Marcus, and there's the guy in front of the daggone mic that takes all the credit. Right. Oh, wait a minute. Hold up.
I feel like there's some shots fired.
But no, when we start looking at our economy, and you start looking at different cities, especially emerging cities, what are some of those opportunities that people should be aware of, or what's some of the more obvious opportunities that people miss a lot of times?
Right. So I think the thing that most people, well, let me back up a little bit to that, because in order to be able to take advantage of opportunity, you have to be prepared for the opportunity.
Okay.
And I think I know the issue that with most businesses, because we saw it when we were giving out money for CARES Act funding, we were giving grants to businesses. They didn't have basic foundational stuff in place to be able to take the grant. All we asked for was 2 years business tax return and a business license. And businesses didn't have that. So that says that you're not set up properly as a business. And so you can't take advantage of opportunities if your business isn't set up right. I mean, we were basically just giving away free money. All you had to do was show your tax returns and your business license. And they couldn't even do that. So I think it's important to understand that this development and growth is happening, but if you're not set up right, you ain't gonna be able to take advantage of any of that stuff.
With this big push for entrepreneurship in our community, for real. It's funny that we still got them two different attitudes. You got some folks that got the attitude like him, bro. You just need to have your paperwork and your taxes done. Ain't that big of a deal. And then you got, I got to do all that. You know what I'm saying?
I mean,
I just can't believe that.
The problem with entrepreneurial, I guess you would say entrepreneurialism today, is because of social media and a lot of the miseducation, people confuse hustling with owning a business.
Right.
And
that's true.
And that's the difference. So they're like, I don't
think
really
a lot
need
of
the
it started off
paperwork.
as
I can make all this money. I don't need a business license because I don't want the government in my business. You know what I'm saying? Right. And so when it comes down to it, and they're like, taxes, I don't want to pay taxes, so I'm gonna hide this and hide that. But then when they try to go get a loan, they don't have everything in order. And so I think that's the biggest problem, that entrepreneurialism has been a hustle instead of a business in a lot of the narrative online. And so they're getting it confused.
Because it just seemed like to me a lot of times in our community, and I ain't trying to down our own folks, but it seemed like we so ill prepared for things. Because it's like other races and stuff, they go start their own businesses. They start from marketing plan, business plan, strategy, business licenses.
But who do you listen to?
The market.
No, but check it out. Who do you listen to? The problem is a lot of our businesses, we listen to people on social media and we get entertained, not informed. Where other cultures, they have a business, like for instance, I have a friend that had a Indian restaurant, and he said how they set it up was they came to him and said, we're going to give you X amount of dollars. You have to do this, this, and this to set up your restaurant. And in 2-3 years, you have to give back and you have to teach the next person. So they got a game plan just laid out for them. And they follow the plan. What we do is we kind of look online and say, hey, that guy he look like he got a lot of money.
And that's true. We got to teach and train. That's the problem. We're not teaching and training. Like, for example, I started my company when I left the city of South Fulton. Well, my daughter, who's in college right now, she wants to be an entrepreneur. She's doing fashion design. Well, I told her, I said, well, you're going to be my business manager for Urban Pulse. You're going to send out the invoices. You're going to make the deposits. You're going to pay all the bills. And what I'm doing, she don't want to do this, what I'm doing for a living, but she wants to own her own business.
Yeah.
And so while she's a phenomenal at fashion design and making clothes, she's at the house making clothes right now for folks. While she's phenomenal at that, The problem is she's got to understand how to also properly run her business so that she can take advantage of situations. Just like when I was in Albany and we were trying to get minorities contracts to do all this construction that was going on. Well, you have to be able to be bonded to do construction in government.
Okay.
Now that's where all the easy money is in the government because they're handing money out left and right. But you have to have certain things in place to be able to get those government contracts.
Yeah.
And folks get mad because it's like, well, you know, the council is majority black or black people running the city. But yeah, we still have to be accountable how we manage the money. You still have to be accountable. Right. And so we want you to win. Like I tell people all the time, the greatest documentary I ever watched was the one about Maynard Jackson and how I tell people, I don't have any documentation that this actually occurred and is true, but I believe it in my heart that Maynard Jackson single-handedly created more black millionaires probably than any other person in modern history.
Wow.
Just by the way he handled and managed stuff that happened at the airport and the expansion of the airport, making sure black people got advantages to do construction at the airport. But he still did it through policy. It wasn't like he just took a check out of the city of Atlanta, checking account and wrote it to people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, you want our folks to take advantage of these opportunities, but you still have to have some accountability on your end. So, so we don't end up in jail. You know what I'm saying?
A lot of times I think we grow up, thinking that bucking school and all this type of stuff, oh man, I ain't doing all that, or dropping out of school and all this makes you cool or give you some type of rite of passage as a man in the hood or whatever. But a lot of times what ends up happening is a lot of that type of stuff, you should have sat there and learned how to get that paperwork straight.
Well, even in school,
or obey rules from somebody.
Well, no, even in school, they don't really teach you a lot of that.
Schools fail people.
Yeah,
I know that's hard to say. We don't want to admit that, but schools, and I teach my children this. My daughter's in college and everything. But if you look at some of the most successful people in this world, none of them dropped out of college. Because what college does is it conditions you to work for other people.
Exactly.
And schools, classrooms, K through whenever, they don't teach you the things that you need to know to be successful. They teach you how to work and follow rules. That's what they teach you how to do. And the problem is if you don't have somebody there, a parent or somebody teaching your child, yes, you need to know how to add 1 + 1, but there's way more stuff to the world than that. And so
he brought tears to my eyes.
but no, that's so true. Because if you even think about it, school starts 8 o'clock in the morning. They let you go around about 3 something. You know what I'm saying? College, your first stuff started about 8 o'clock in the morning.
Check it out. The most interesting thing is, I don't know about y'all schools, but how many schools taught you how to even balance a checkbook?
Right. Not one.
Let alone a financial statement or anything of that nature.
Right. But I got to push back on that because I really, really thought about it, especially being a parent myself.
Yeah.
I don't think I want them teaching my kids that type of stuff. Teach them what they need to know. Give them the basics, the history and all this. Let them get past the driver's test and all this. Daddy got it. I don't want y'all teaching them.
But see, that's you're an active parent in that aspect, and you're an entrepreneur. Think about it from a parent that is a 9-to-5er and they're just keeping their head down, waiting for that pension. See what I'm saying? So they're not teaching you entrepreneurial skills. They're just like, hey, just get good grades.
Oh, yeah.
Be accepted by your teacher. Your teacher says 1 + 1 = 10. It is what it is. I don't care what you think.
Right.
Don't think for yourself. That's why they took critical thinking out of college. Well, they don't want you to think for yourself.
Trust me.
So, no, but listen to this. I always say this. There is a game. Now, there's ones that don't even know it's a game.
Mm-hmm.
There's ones that know it's a game, but don't know the rules to the game, don't know how to play it. And then there's ones that actually know it's a game and they make the rules to the game.
Oh, yeah.
The problem is a lot of us are listening to people that don't even know it's a game.
Wow.
So they don't even know I need a business license. They just think I can just set up a website.
You still think your friends are here for you and all that.
And I can make money and it'll all work itself out. They don't know, like you said with your daughter, that the majority of your business is doing things that you don't even like doing until you hire somebody to do those things. And it's overwhelming when you like, oh, I got to balance my books. I got to do this. I got to do that. And that makes your business now not fun to do because we've always been taught you like to make shirts. Go out there and make some shirts. Just sell some shirts.
Yeah.
And that's your business. But actually, there's 20 other jobs you got to do. And then by the time you get around to making your shirts, you're like, I don't want to do this.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. And to that point, though, when you talk about hiring other people, you do want to hire other people. And I watched, your show the other day where Airbnb was talking about.
Yeah,
I was talking about, hire people so you don't have to, but you want to make sure you know how to do everything because the reality is you want to make sure your accountant's not ripping you off because that happens a lot. So you got to be able to check those books and know, okay, these numbers make sense based on the production we've been doing and our expenses. You got to be able to know. You got to check the people who are checking you.
Yeah, but that's such good advice for entrepreneurs because a lot of times, even with me, we open the apparel shop out there in Hiram. I don't want to be a screen printer, bro. It's a lot of work, but I'm taking the class to make sure I understand what the person that I'm hiring is supposed to be doing.
Know what good
so that way
like.
He can't come over there getting over on me. Yeah, like, man, we got you. No, you don't.
Nah, know what good looks like.
But the other thing about that is, and that's one of the things that always killed me about the government is that, we only train one person to do something. When that person's out, we shut down that function of the government. She on vacation. You ain't be able to get this done till they come back in next week. No, you got to cross train. Good business got to keep going. If somebody on vacation, this function still needs to happen. And it's the same way in your business. You got to know, you don't have to do everything, but you have to know how to do everything. And if you don't, then you've kind of failed as a business owner. And I know once you get to a certain level, that's not necessarily true. Like, I don't think Elon Musk is out there putting tires on the cars that's coming off the assembly line.
But I think he would if he had to.
But he might.
I think he would if he had to, honestly. He's serious about
it. But so at some point you grow past some of that. But the reality is you got to know, especially if you're a small business, how to keep your business running. If something happens, something pops off and somebody's gone.
Now, I'm glad you mentioned Elon Musk because I love this conversation.
You mentioned Elon Musk.
Well, one of us did.
Well, I said Elon Musk not out there putting tires on his car.
But no, I love that you mentioned that because, we had this conversation all the time. We still sitting here arguing over these little small independent things that we argue over and, racism and all this other type of stuff. And they building literally the next economy right above our heads up there in space.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And none of us is thinking about it.
Right.
Like, I don't know not one black business is in space tech anywhere. Like, seriously, I can't think of none of my friends that came to me anything about trying to even put a cheeseburger stand in space. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But they're building this whole brand new infrastructure. How do we start changing our vision? Because what I've seen working with small businesses and medium-sized businesses and even some large businesses over my career over the last 15 years, our vision is so much smaller.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess it's being realistic. But it's a lot of times folks come to me with such a small vision.
It's not realistic.
But do you know how often, and I hate to say this, in the black community, when I'm sitting down consulting with somebody, I hear the word $1 million.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, $1 million.
But no, what I'm saying is I barely even hear it.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Man, I can make, 10, 15,000 or 20,000 a year. And then I sit down with these big white corporations or these white businesses, even the white startups. Man, we can scale to 1.2 in the first year. And then after this, why are we not on this thought process?
I think it goes back to I don't want to make it that simple that it's more than just education, but it's the conditioning. So because as a culture and as a race, Black people are so far behind when it comes to having access to capital, when it comes to having resources to build a business, we're 30, 40 years behind everybody else. So $1 million is what we've been conditioned because 40, 50 years ago, $1 million was a lot of money. We know today that's $1 million.
Chump change. If it's like 100,000 when I was growing up.
If you have a 6-figure job just working for somebody,
you're gonna
have $1 million by within a few years. Just the nature of your salary. So that in itself is just what we've been conditioned to believe. And my generation, we made more money than the generation before and that generation. And so we're thinking incrementally we're advancing, but we're not advancing as fast as other societies just because of where we've started. It's like that video that's all on social media where they put all these kids in a line to do a race and they told all the Black kids to stand still and they told the white kids to start running.
Oh yeah.
And then after they got to a certain place, then they told the Black kids to start running and they're trying to catch up, but they're so far ahead that they're not going to catch up. And so that's kind of how we are from a societal standpoint and access to resources.
We're going to hold it right there. We'll be right back right here on the Real 1100 AM iHeartRadio, checking in all over the world. We'll be right back with the one and only Christopher Pike. I am KC Pride.
And I am Mr. Marketology.
We'll be right back after this.
Since I've been single, cause I just wanna be matrix. Dodge your call like the Matrix. Dodge your call like steady on top. Better believe They keep praying on my fall, y'all better believe I'ma die on top. Better believe. I just watch my ops team up, y'all better believe.
This is the Rockstar KC
and Mr. Marketology.
invite everybody to join us at our brand new time for the #1 rated morning show at
10 a.m. in the morning.
live on the Real 1100 AM and iHeartRadio all over the world.
And that's Monday through Friday.
When news is breaking, you need to be connected and need to know what's going on. You want local coverage because that's where you'll get the real story. When it comes to sports, you want local coverage of your favorite pro and college teams because they've got the inside scoop. The iHeartRadio app gives you local coverage from over 1,500 radio stations across the country, keeping you informed. And best of all, the iHeartRadio app is free. Download it or go to iHeartRadio.com.
Tune your radio.
Tune in.
Now, you can tune into this radio station on any smartphone or tablet. iPhone, Android, BlackBerry, Nokia, Samsung, Windows phones, or whatever you have. Download the free TuneIn app from your phone or tablet's app store. Tune in with music, sports, news, and comedy from over 70,000 radio stations around the world, including this Beasley Broadcast Group station. Check it out at tunein.com or your app store.
What up, y'all? It's your boy Rodney Perry, comedian extraordinaire, and I'm rocking with my boy KC Pride on the #1 rated business show. What?
We are back right here on the Real 1100 AM iHeartRadio, checking in all over the world. It's Big Scoop Thursday.
It's the scoop.
And we definitely got a great interview for you today. Once again, we're sitting here talking with Christopher Pike. We're talking about vision.
Yeah.
How to create the right vision before you even get started. So jumping back in that conversation, I love what you said right before we went to break, because it's always been one of those kind of jokes in our community. It's like, well, you give me a 400 your head start, I'd be way out there too.
Yeah.
Right. But no, it's vision. How do we get our people to increase that vision just to be a little bit bigger than what folks thinking? Because a lot of times it's like, we trying to be so real, and we scared to really, really put something big out there because they don't want to fail big. I really don't even know what it is at this point. I can't do nothing that small though.
Yeah. I think from what I see is it's fear. So again, we've been conditioned to think, well, you go to college, go to school, get you a good job, 9 to 5. I mean, I just left a good job, making more money than I ever made. But the reality is you're never going to be more than that job. And so I think what happens is we get conditioned to think, well, this is what we're supposed to do. And then we get, life happens. You have kids, you get a mortgage, you have car payments now. So now you're stuck.
Yeah.
And so you don't want to jump out there because of the fear of failure. And so we've just been conditioned to think, well, this is what we're supposed to do. And there's so much more to that. And even if you get conditioned to that, again, just like you said, knowing your awareness, you need to know, like, okay, I've been conditioned for this, but I don't want my children to be conditioned for this.
Wow.
And I think that's the thing that, you have to be understanding where you are, because sometimes we're in situations that we just can't get out of, because, I mean, at the end of the day, you got to have a place to live. So you got to have money to pay your mortgage or your rent. So
what I found, honestly, it don't matter how much you get paid as far as income, whatever your check is, before you know it, you're going to outlive it.
Yep.
Like, seriously. And they're only going to pay you enough to make you keep coming back to work every day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what was that mean, that your job pays you
just enough for you not to quit, and you do just enough for not to get fired.
right. Or no, they pay you enough to make you forget your dreams. I think that's what it was. Yeah. And so again, just that mentality of you got to come and show up for a check and do the minimum work. But I tell people, what I tell my kids all the time is like, listen, I said, just like when I left. Mm-hmm. A week later, they posted my job. If I died, they would have posted my job. If I left, they would have posted my job. And there's no benefits for my children past my being alive or being present at that job. And so when you talk about entrepreneurship and stepping out and not living by that fear, you want to create something that if I die now, at least my children have an asset that they can then sell, that they can then live their life after I'm gone. And I think that's the mindset that we need to get into. And, quite frankly, I mean, we're having an honest conversation here. I hear a lot of Black families be like, well, they're going to have to get their own stuff. I got mine. And there's no talk about generational wealth. And that's really the business that I'm in. I do other stuff, but you know, I grew up dirt poor. Like I've lived in homeless shelters before. So my thing is, let's stop this cycle. Let's create some generational wealth. Just like when you tell your kids, oh, well, they're 18, they need to go out and get their house. Well, my daughter's upstairs in her room right now, because I don't want her to have to be like, oh, I need to go out and do this so that I can make money to pay my rent. No, you get yourself established, get yourself where you can do some impactful things that are going to build a future for you and your children. And then that's kind of the mindset and the posture that we need to have and we need to take. And I just don't think we do that enough.
No, that is so true, because even with me, when my father passed away, he left me with $10,000. It took $9,000 to bury him and $1,000 to feed everybody. So
you better than me, man. You better than me.
That's all legacy I got.
Yeah, you better than me. My dad passed. We didn't get nothing. My mom just told me, this is what's in the attic. Take what you want.
Yeah.
Wow. But now we definitely have to start thinking on that level, because too many times we don't get that jump in life, or our kids don't get that jump in life that so many other folks, you know, got.
Right. And I think also we need to change first of all, two things. One, we need to be observant. Like you mentioned before, when you look at successful people and you start looking at their documentaries, which we don't do because we're looking too much at music videos, you look at their documentary and look at their path and dissect their path and say, okay, if I want to be successful like them, here's some successful clues that are left to be so. Right. You know, when you look at them, most of them did not go to college and go get a 9-to-5 job and work 20 years and then all of a sudden retire and then say, okay, I'm going to now start this business. No, they didn't. But the problem is we listen to other people say, this is what you should do. And then when you start saying, well, how many people did that and was successful at a level that I want to be?
Exactly.
We don't do that. So we need to be more observant, first of all. And then second, we need to surround ourselves with people that can give us that vantage point, that perspective. You know, if you're actually going to some of these networking events, like with commissioners and things of that nature, and you start hearing their conversations, now you're getting into a new environment. So you start seeing different things. The problem is we want to hang out at networking events with the club and blah, blah, and we're hanging out with people in the same pool that we're in, trying to tell us how to get out the pool and be somewhere else.
Right. Yeah. One of the greatest quotes that I've ever heard, and it might have been some social media stuff while we're talking about social media, but you know, you know, if you're sitting in a room or you're in a room and you're the smartest person in the room, then you're in the wrong room. Yeah. Yeah. And so I think that's the thing. We get so caught up in, you know, our insecurities that we don't want to go and associate with people who know more than us, who are bigger than us, who might be better in us in something. I'm not saying no one's better than anybody.
Why we do that though? Like serious, because I remember back when I was a little bit younger or whatever, and it just occurred to me one time. I was sitting there, I was talking to a group of doctors, and it was like, why do I feel intimidated by y'all? Because at the end of the day, I'm not fixing to go in your operating room and do nothing, but you ain't fixing to step in my lane and do nothing either. Right. You know what I'm saying? I'm the king of marketing and branding and all this type of stuff, and you the king of being a doctor. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Right. So why do we feel that way when we get around our peers or get around more successful people?
I think a lot of it goes back to the conditioning. Yeah. We've been conditioned to be accepted. I mean, literally, most of our lives, we're striving to be accepted by somebody else that has no impact on our lives.
Right. Wow.
And that's why.
But and that's true. But it's funny because last week I was in a situation, a conversation with somebody, and you're thinking, I'm like, well, here I am. I'm 43. I feel like I'm a kid, like listening to these folks. But what I had to tell myself was, you know, I'm learning from these folks. You're never too old to learn. So even though you've done a lot, you have a lot of experiences. When you are in a place that is stretching you, then you're going to feel uncomfortable a little bit, but you have to be okay with that in order to be able to get those nuggets that you need to be able to grow. Now, when I left that room, I was much better off because now I had some insight that I didn't have before, which helps me be more impactful in what I'm doing from a career standpoint. And I think that's the thing we have to be okay with, is you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Yeah. And you have to get to that point mentally to be able to grow.
Everything that you want is right outside your comfort zone.
Yep.
Yeah. Absolutely. I promise you. It's like once, and I feel you, because when I first started going to networking events and all this type of stuff, it was the most just uncomfortable, nervous type feeling. You know what I'm saying? Not knowing what to say to somebody, or just walking up to perfect strangers and this type of stuff. And a lot of times, a lot of my friends let me down. They didn't want to go.
Right.
I ended up having to go by myself.
Yep.
But here we are 10, 15 years later. You know what I'm saying? Right. It's a much different story. So a lot of times you got to get out that comfort zone and just keep pushing. and until you feel comfortable. And then once you start to feel comfortable, guess what? You need to go get uncomfortable again.
Yeah.
You just stop growing.
Yep.
So what are some of the things you've done to actually position yourself with some major players, especially in a federal government, corporate setting? Because a lot of times that's a different game.
Right.
We want to go in there and be authentic, which you should be authentic, but we don't understand that the language is different. The game is different. How did you position yourself in a way or get to those tables?
Good question.
Yeah, that's a great question.
My questions are good.
That's a great question.
He
So
said, like I be saying,
I know
some dumb stuff.
he was like, man, you had an epiphany.
Wow.
That's your one good thought for the
Yeah,
week.
He actually got a brain.
No, so what and it's funny because I do a Wisdom Wednesday video, and I talked about this today about building your personal brand.
Okay.
And I think really that's what it stems from. I tell people all the time, there's nothing special about me other than I just live my purpose, and then I go out and every day operate in that purpose. And I think people attract to you.
And he light skinned, Joe. I'm just putting it out there for you. And he light skinned. That's right.
Light skin helps a little bit.
He's only light skinned because it's cold outside.
Listen, I did go to Puerto Rico a few weeks ago. I got dark. I got real dark. But that's funny you said the light skin. I would tell a quick story and I'm gonna get back on it. My friend, my best friend, he and I sold radio advertising. We actually worked for Clear Channel, now iHeartMedia.
Wow, okay.
Back in Albany, and we sold radio. And he's short and dark skinned. I'm tall and light skinned, and I always dressed. I didn't always wear a 3-piece suit, but I always had on a tie and some pants and stuff. Yeah. And every time we would go somewhere together, everybody would talk to me and they would never talk to him. And so one day he's like, Pike, you know why they do that, right? And I was like, nah. He's like, because you light skinned and I'm not. And I was like, man, come on. But in your mind, you don't even think about that. But then I started paying attention and that stuff is true. But
wow, it is true. It is.
No, I'm just giving you a hard time. I'm giving you a hard time. No, but back to the point. So I think when you operate in your gifts and you become a subject matter expert, I think then that opens up doors for you. And so I'm able to be invited to places that I would not have gotten into if I didn't operate in my gifts. And I know that sounds very simplistic, but I tell people all the time, I would do what I do for free if I could figure out how to feed my kids. And I think that resonates with people. And so you get into these doors that you wouldn't normally get into. And so I think if you don't try to fit into something that is not your purpose, then you those doors open up for you. But then again, being accountable, like people know, like when they come to the city, like there's people who did business in the city of South Fulton specifically because I was there. Wow. And that they knew that I was going to do business a certain way, that they were going to get taken care of. And that resonates with people. When I left the city of South Fulton, I had mayors from other cities reach out to me saying that, we hate that you're leaving the city of South Fulton because you weren't only just good for the city of South Fulton, you were good for the region. Wow. And so when that resonates, that also opens doors for you. And you just have to be intentional about the work that you're doing. It doesn't matter what you do. If you're marketing gurus like yourselves, if it's like my daughter who's in fashion design, making clothes, if it's economic development, is when you live in that purpose and you operate in that and you maximize that, people are going to recognize that and they're going to want you at the table. And that's really the way the doors opened up for me, was just being authentic to myself and living in my purpose.
Now let's talk about the authenticity, because a lot of times I think some folks kind of mistake that. Because I act a fool on the radio and all that type of stuff, and we joke, we have a lot of fun. But when I walk into a boardroom, I act like I'm in a boardroom.
Right.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And I don't think that takes away from your authenticity.
No.
I don't get to sound like a white person at all. But in the same breath, I give it the respect that the situation
gets some days.
That light skinned hate boy. Yeah. They say you look like him almost. You look like him
brother. Excuse me. And this is how But seriously, what does that mean for so many folks? Because everybody, I think, in this day and age is really trying to figure out, all right, how do I show up and be my authentic self,
right,
and not feel like I'm selling out and this type of stuff.
So this is what I tell my children. So this is parenting advice, and so my daughter, she listens to music, and of course that's not I ask her, I said, do you have anything that's not talking about sex and drugs? She says, there's anything y'all got?
Not if it was made in the last 2 years.
Right. And so that's her playlist. But I also know that she has a playlist of all the stuff I listen to. Like
Wow.
Biggie's my favorite rapper.
Okay.
She got
say it again.
Biggie. She got a whole.
Miles, play that Biggie for him. Look, we played Biggie the other day. Kevin didn't even know who it was.
On the anniversary,
Yeah,
March 9th.
See, you got
Bruh.
bad parenting. My daughter got Biggie's shirt. She got playlists.
My daughter like Tupac.
Right, see, that's all right.
My daughter like
I
Tupac,
like
bro.
Tupac, but I was like, that's Biggie. He talking about what's this mess y'all playing on the radio?
Oh
I'm
man,
like,
mess.
Biggie,
KC
man.
said that.
That's one of them deep cuts, bro. That was a deep cut, though. That nobody heard that.
Boy. But the point I tell her is that, you know, and I was talking to a group of kids and told them the same thing. I said, it's okay to be yourself. You got to know when it's appropriate to be this and when it's appropriate to be that. I said, listen, my friends who know me know that we go down to the House of Jazz and I turn all the way up. But when I go talk to the mayor and council, that's going to be a whole different, but it's still me.
Yeah.
But it's like, you don't have to just be like a stick in the mud.
Yeah.
You can be cool and hang out and do all this stuff and turn up and still be a professional that's respected by people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so I think what people get so caught up in, they got to be one and then they shun the other one. And you don't have to do that. You could be, cool. It takes my best friend to tell you, he's like, Pike, thing I like about you is I could take you to the outhouse, you're gonna be okay, or I could take you to the White House, so you're gonna be okay. Either way, you're gonna be fine. So I'm fine on the farm, I'm fine, at the most powerful house on the planet, I'm gonna be good. You know what I'm saying? But you have to have confidence in yourself and be comfortable with yourself to be able to function like that. And people know, like, man, I reached out to some of my former coworkers when I left the city, because everybody at the city is like, man, this dude professional is all good. But then when I started reaching out to some of my friends on the social, my coworkers on the social thing, it's like I kind of saw some glimpses, but some glimpses, because I was like, man, you ever hang out on Old National Day? It's like, no, that's not my. I was like, man, I like a little ratchetness. You gotta know how to fuck. Like it's funny because I used to go to the most ratchet places in a 3-piece suit. Everybody look at me like, what are you doing in here?
It's the Poe.
But people I would tell you, one time I was doing a community, but we were building a park in Albany, and they had the sheriff department brought some of the inmates in to help do some of the building.
Okay.
And I knew one of the guys. Now I was on the city commission, city council in Albany. And so when we were eating lunch, I went over to sit with all the inmates, and I was talking to them. I was guy I knew. We was just talking. We just chopped it up the whole about an hour and a half. And all these people kept coming over talking to me, all these important people. And the guy said to me, he was like, I just want to say thank you. And I was like, what you mean? And he was like, man, you sit down here and ate lunch with us. He's like, all these important people came over talking to you. He's like, you weren't embarrassed to sit with us. I was like, let me tell you something. We all do stuff in our life. We all hit some bumps in the road, but at the end of the day, we're all people. And I said, I don't care what these folk think about me. I was like, I am who I am. I'm not going to shun you. I knew you way before, you went to jail. So, I still know you even though you in jail. Like, I'm not going to be that person. And I think that resonates with people, that authenticity, that it's just always going to get you to where you're supposed to be if you're just true to yourself and real with people.
Now, I want to give you a purpose question in regards to finding your purpose. So often we look at our purpose based on what makes a lot of money. Right. Somebody like, I did this because that was my purpose. And then you say, okay, what if you made no money doing it?
Right.
How do you actually be true to yourself and say, this is my purpose and this is why I do it?
I will tell you, when you operate at your purpose, the money will come. When I left Albany and went to Villa Rica, where I first started as a Main Street manager, I was making $45,000 a year.
Wow.
That was in 2015. When I left the city of South Fulton, I was making 6 figures.
Mm-hmm.
So from 15 to 21 or 22, I increased that much in salary. So every year I was increasing $15,000, $20,000 per year. Because when I went to Villa Rica, I was Main Street manager. Then I got a promotion to downtown development director and tourism. Then I became the economic development director, and then I got recruited to come over to South Fulton, and then I got a promotion in South Fulton. And that every year I was making more and more money. Now this year that I'm in now, because I started my own business, I'm gonna make less money. And but you go into it knowing that when you first step up, but it's going to come because I'm operating my purpose. The money follows the purpose. When you're doing what you're supposed to do, the money's going to come. Now you have to work. Now you have to work. I'm not saying, oh, well, I'm just doing what makes me feel good. Money's going to show up. No, you got to get, like, I gave City of South Fulton more than 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you have to do more than what is required in order to track that. But like I tell people all the time, I mean, Mondays were like Fridays for me. I loved what I did so much that every day was a Friday.
Yeah.
So
Now, how do you rewind the clock back to when you was making 45 a year? Because see, when you're making 45 a year, unless them bills start piling up,
Nobody happy at 45.
Yeah, well, how was you, like, yeah, this still is my purpose. I know I'm not making the money now, but this still is my purpose. Because a lot of times, it's like you're one pitch away from that breakthrough.
Right.
But you're like, I'm looking at it now. Maybe this is not my purpose because I'm not making the money right now.
Well, I tell you, it was rough now. I mean, I lived in Atlanta making $45,000 a year. It was rough. But, there were people there. Like, so, for example, my brother and I were roommates.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he had a good job. So he was picking up a lot of the slack that I couldn't do.
Yeah.
Because he knew where I was in that season.
Yeah.
And then we got to a point where our roles kind of changed.
Yeah.
But the point of the matter is, I didn't eat necessarily what I wanted to eat, but I didn't starve.
But you ate McDonald's.
Yeah.
He ate McDonald's, KC.
I didn't have.
He did it because he had to.
I had to.
Not by choice.
I had the little, old broke down Ford Taurus, but hey, I got back and forth to work every day. You know what I'm saying? So you have, and then. But then, even though I was making 45, it increased so significantly, so fast that I didn't stay in that season that long.
Yeah.
And so that's really what I say is that, if you do things based off of money, you'll never be happy. And then when the money goes away, you'll be ruined. There's been many times that I've started over professionally, but because I was operating my purpose, I still bounced back. Like there's people look at me today when you knew the trials and tribulations that I went through when I left Albany. People look at me now and they're like, "Oh God, we never thought you would survive that." So you know what I'm saying? So you have to, be, again, I use that word intentional. You have to be intentional. You have to work. It's not enough just to say I'm operating in my passion. You have to actually go out there and work that every day. So that would be my advice on that.
Now turn the conversation to your most recent endeavor.
Right.
The company that you have built now. Tell us a little bit about the company and tell us a little bit about who you serve and how you're helping the communities.
So Urban Pulse is we help do economic development planning. So master planning, strategic plans around economic development, government services. And then we do on the private sector side, we help developers understand what the needs are in a community, help those developers get through that red tape, help them get to a council meeting without pitchforks from the citizens. And then we do the real estate side of that. So what I'm doing is basically the same thing I was doing for the city of South Fulton. I just get to do it for more people now. And so we are in the process of, we started this company in February when it came back from Puerto Rico. And so we're in the process of getting some contracts in place and things. And we got some cities that we're getting ready to announce that we're working with. But what we do is help them. I like to call it juice up their economic development strategy.
Wow, okay.
And so what we want to do is make sure cities, especially cities on the south side. So I'm not ashamed to say that I'm intentional about working south of I-20. That's going to be the target area that we focus on. We want to make sure those cities are prepared whenever it's time for this growth, that they are having strategies in place that we're not displacing people, gentrification. The people that help build these communities need to be here when the money comes, and they need to participate in that. So helping them create a strategy around that, helping the developers that are coming most from the north side who think that only Black people should have this type of development, helping them understand, no, these folks have disposable income and these folks have the ability to support the type of development they want, and we can help you figure out how to get the money that you need, because at the end of the day, the developer needs to make money, but have a quality development that people on the south side can be proud of. And so that's what we help do. We bridge those gaps. We speak the language of government and we speak the language of the private sector, and we help put those two things together.
Okay. Now that Amazon's there, is it a game changer?
So I don't want to get in trouble for all this. So those things like Amazon, those big industrial buildings really have very little positive impact on the community. So everybody will tell you, they create jobs. They do create jobs. And at this point, because of the labor market, they are creating some good jobs. The working conditions aren't necessarily the best. But the reality is most of the people who live on the south side aren't working those jobs. Those people are coming from other places. So when you're talking about how are you positively impacting the geographical area that's servicing that building from a fire standpoint or a police standpoint, there's really not much impact. I would rather have a very high dense mixed use development with restaurants and apartments and stuff like that than a 1 million square foot industrial building, because you're going to get more tax revenue out of the mixed use development than you are that industrial building. So while you appreciate the fact that those jobs do have impact, it's not the level of impact that it's going to have from doing a mixed use development, something like that.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, what are some of the upcoming opportunities? Because COVID has decimated a lot of different industries, and we're starting to see even Lorenzo talked about we're in this period of new things and new ways of doing business. What do you see as some of the newer opportunities in business that's going to be coming about?
Well, contrary to what a lot of people believe, I believe this, that the office is going to come back. Like people only want to be segregated in their house for so long. So that work from home it's fine in theory. People like it. But I was reading, I think it was Atlanta Business Journal, one of those. I read all these publications every day, but they're saying Atlanta is the top 5 market for office rentals, and so that office space is coming back. Yeah, I mean, I do it because now I don't have an office to go to, but
but it's a good way to save money. But at the end of the day, you end up in this cycle of you feel like you should be, anytime you got free time at home, you feel like you should be down in the office working.
So that's going to come back, and one of the things that is a market that's really underserved on the South Side is Class A office space.
Wow.
And so I'm working with a developer now to bring some Class A office space to the South Side. Because there's such a need. And I have people ask me all the time, when I was with the city, they would call 2 or 3 times a month. Hey, I need some office space. And I was like, well, we don't have any on the South Side to give you, because all they're building is industrial. So I think that if you're trying to get into this market and you want to do something that's going to generate some revenue, I think pretty quickly, Class A office space is going to be
that's true.
Any mixed use development, because what's happening is the developers that are coming from the north side, they want to build garden style apartments with a little strip in the front, retail. We need some real true mixed use development. And so I think anytime you do that, you're going to attract, because I get calls all the time for restaurant space. Well, we don't have any restaurant space because there isn't any being built on the South Side. So if you think about every time you have what we call second generational restaurant space, which is a restaurant that is closed and has the hood vent and everything in it. I mean, that thing gets leased within weeks of the other business closing. So there's such a demand for it, but nobody's building it. And so I think if you have folks that operate in either one of those spaces, they're going to kill it, because there's just so much demand and so many people looking for the space.
So as developers, we can just go in and literally build just restaurants in the hopes that a restaurant's gonna come in and lease this place for us, because a lot of times you kind of think of it in a different manner. You kind of think that the restaurant itself comes and put all that development together.
Well, most of the time, restaurants are getting to that. Bigger restaurants don't want to have the asset on their books. So like if you look like CVS, Walgreens, Publix, they don't actually own any of that, because that hurts their bottom line. They rent that off, and then they write off the rental.
Wow.
So your bigger places aren't trying to buy real estate. So what's happening is you have to have developers come in and build it, and then the restaurants will lease it from them. So it's now you do have some restaurants that are like first generation, like mom and pop restaurants, and they understand like it would be more beneficial for me to own this asset than to lease. And so you do have restaurants, but the problem is they don't want to just build on an island and there's nothing else around them. And so that's why you got to have the other mixed use parts to it, because retail and commercial are going to follow rooftops. And so they're not going to go buy a 1 acre parcel out in the middle of nowhere and build a restaurant. It doesn't really help them that much. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. You got to figure out how to get the density and the ownership together. So
man, we got to have you back. We definitely got to have you back.
He said he's bringing some restaurants to the South Side, and it's about time.
I said, we need to bring some of them. I'm working on the restaurant stuff. I'm working on the restaurant.
We need to bring some. I'm thinking in my head.
Because all we got is McDonald's. All we got is McDonald's on the South Side.
We got more than McDonald's.
I got some developer friends, bro. We go down there and build it up. But if anybody want to get in contact with you, man, if anybody wants to do business with Urban Pulse, man, how can folks get in contact with you? Because I promise you, everybody is just floored by this interview. It's been
appreciate that, man.
A wealth of knowledge here today, and I even got some new ideas about some business. I'm leaving the radio. I'm gone.
Well, you can do both, you know. You can do both.
I'm finna go build me some restaurant.
Yeah, do that. Hey, man, listen, the restaurant business is hard to get into. But if you want to hit me up, we're Urban Pulse US on all social media, urbanpulse.us on website URL. Look us up. We are definitely here to help. Even if it's a small mom and pop business that needs some help just navigating that red tape, we're happy to help you do that. Because your business license get lost, or you're trying to do your zoning application and it gets lost. So we're here to help with that. So please look
government in your business.
Yeah, well, government gonna be in your business. I don't know why people get that. I don't want them. If you carry around this cell phone, the government is in your business.
Ladies and gentlemen, it has been another installment. See, even getting applause.
Man,
applause.
That's what I'm talking about. We're gonna go out on Biggie too.
Yeah, play some Biggie on the way out.
It's been another installment of the number one rated business show right here on the Real 1100 AM. Trust me, if you are looking to get any advice in business, if you're a mayor, if you're a part of a city development team, trust me, you definitely want to get in contact with this man right here, Urban Pulse. Christopher Pike, trust me, he is number one rated, approved, and he light skinned, Joe. So
I'm gonna have to have you bring your partner in next time.
I'll bring my homeboy. He's just as good as me, but he's just dark skinned.
I told him salt and pepper is the best thing you ever put on anything.
We're gonna need to balance it out.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank y'all so much for joining us. Join us tomorrow for Freedom Friday.
We free.
And we're gonna ask Dr. P some questions. She'll be back in the house. 10 a.m. right here on the Real 1100 AM iHeartRadio, checking in all over the world. I'm the Rockstar KC.
And I'm Mr. Marketology.
And we are out.
At your cherry M3, bang every MC easily. Recently, frontin' ain't saying nothing, so I just speak my peace. Keep my peace. Cubans with the Jesus peace. With my peace. Asking who want it. They got it. Flaunt it. That Brooklyn, we on it.
Biggie, 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 can't you see? Sometimes your words